Saludos. You are listening to Que Madre in partnership with Bienestar Latinx for the first time ever. So excited here with Ali Cortes and Ana Rosa Centino. So this episode, because it's the first one that we're doing together, is going to be more of an introduction. So all you 96.5 KZAA listeners, this is Ali Cortes. And if you could give us an introduction about yourself.
Absolutely. Hola, hola, ¿qué tal, bella gente? It is a huge honor to be with you en este día tan hermoso. It's a beautiful day to just be in community and just, I'm so grateful to be sharing this time and space with the Queen, Ana, and all your listeners. I'm excited. My nombre es Alejandra Belén Cortés Narváez Mero López Ramírez. Recently got married. And I am the founder of Bienestar Latinx, which is a platform all about transforming generational trauma into generational wealth. You know, we're all seeking this happiness, but we firmly believe in the healing, in the finding harmony and balance. You know, life is a duality. You know, finding the parts that heal us and reclaiming ourselves, reclaiming our narrative, our stories, reclaiming our mind, our body, our future, our past. And so it's a platform that's really focused on that. Un poquito de mí, just a little bit about myself. You know, I'm from Mexico City, the Chilangolandia. Anybody from Mexico City? You know, quiero a huge shout out. That's my madre tierra over there. I came down as an immigrant with my family when I was really young, and we navigated, you know, solitos, really, during a time that was really, really challenging. We didn't have any family here in California, and I really give us a lot of props for going through, you know, the highs and the lows. And then somehow, some way, made my way to Santa Barbara. I don't know, a panzazos, I would say. Like, I still don't understand how life led me here, but I'm so glad it did. I went to UCSB. I'm not even first gen because I was born in Mexico City, but I feel like a first gen where we navigated UCSB, the classes, just all of it as a college student, somehow trying to get through, trying to get by. And luckily I was able to study psychology. And once I graduated from UCSB, I started working with youth, with foster youth, and I fell in love with it. I didn't realize how much. So I give a lot of props to my ancestors. They have led me through this whole path. There's times that I look back and I'm like I just told you, I'm like, I don't know how I got here, pero there's been a calling. And when I started working with foster youth, they were my teachers. They really taught me about really what's going on in the community. They made me kind of deconstruct a lot of myself and the things that I had learned in an institution that it's like, well, you have to do it this way. You have to look at life at this way, and you have to look at this theory. And they really brought in my heart and my mind, and they brought me back to my roots. And then luckily I got another job working with the schools and working with junior high students. And I loved it even more. It was so wonderful to, again, they were my teachers as well. They were real, they were raw, they were honest. And together each year that I had a different class, we navigated a lot together. And then I knew that I needed more information. I knew that I wanted to do a little bit more. So I went and got my master's in clinical psychology at Antioch University. And I love the experience because I did the Latino mental health cohort where we focused on therapy practices and cultura, familiarismo, you know, hacer pláticas, and just really like come into like ourselves and finding where our own medicine is, and then talking more about our mind and our body. And that was only one piece of it. After that, I graduated, and I now work as a clinical youth outreach worker at the school district. And so I navigated a lot of the high schools and bringing in support systems, therapy, and you know, connecting with family, and just bringing all the resources, making it as accessible as possible for our students who are, you know, they're warriors. They're going through it a lot. And so again, they are my teachers, and I just feel so honored that I can be part of their journey and witness that, while I am also learning more about my own healing journey. And then that's during the pandemic, wow, it was interesting. There was a lot of agencies that they were like, oh, well, we want to connect with the Latino community. And I was like, okay, but how? And they're like, we're going to do all these websites. I'm like, ooh, no, that's not going to do it. We need heart. Necesitamos corazón. So we started doing pláticas. We just got on Zoom in a time where we couldn't connect in person. We were just like, let's jump on Facebook and do Facebook lives. And we started talking about everything and anything. We talked about, how to dismantle the stigmas around mental health, and just making it more una plática sobre, hey, we've been struggling before the pandemic, but now even more, what can we still do? Where can we still find our strengths? Where can we still find our gente? And just, we brought in leaders. And so that's just a kind of like just a quick summary of the journey. Along all that, I'm learning about myself, about how to tune into my body, how to reclaim my own life. I've been through a lot of unfortunate, like, toxic relationships, and, healing that. And so now, like I mentioned, ya me casé, I'm married, and he's a wonderful guy. I manifested him. And it's just so beautiful to kind of put it all together and bring more of that to the community and share all our stories. And I feel like cuando conversamos, when we do that plática, we learn from each other. So I'm so excited to be part of this journey with Ana y con todos ustedes, to share more. And that's just a little bit about me, but we're going to be doing these weekly, so we'll share more. I'm an open book. And so there'll be more of me that I'll be sharing, pero I do it with intention to support and lovingly share, some of the things that I've learned along the way. And I'm excited to bring guest speakers who are going to share their stories, and all in partnership with this amazing queen. And, I love what you and Jessica have done. And so it's an honor. And I just want to honor, all the work that you both have done to really bring forward this platform of our voices, empowerment, and ese como que no te dejes, mija. Like, we need that message over and over and over to keep going, and also rest, So I hope what I can bring is that, recarga las pilas. How are we going to recharge? How do we bring that regenerative energy back to ourselves so that we can keep going? Because that gives us so much joy. And then how do we find the self-love? And then how do we keep going in a way that's going to also prevent the burnout?
Mhm.
Como we're always there. We're always giving so much. And how do we cross through the threshold of, like, shame and guilt and the stigmas of a lot of things? So that's just a little bit about me.
That's beautiful. And another thing is that you were ED of executive director of A Different Point of View, and just became executive director of an organization called Transition US. I'm executive director of an organization called One Step a la Vez. So, this position is not something, especially not, in California, where it's held by many women of color, or, Chicana women specifically. So, we'll be talking about career issues. We'll be talking about family issues. I know you have a fur baby that you left out of that intro, but he's precious and I love him so much. And if you called me a queen, I call you an empress. And I know ever since I met you, I've just been like, I need you in my life. Like, you are one of the friends that I'm like, oh, we need to spend more time together. So honestly, just full confession, this is an excuse to spend more time with Alejandra. So hopefully you all get a lot out of it. And in case you're new to KZAA 96.5 and haven't listened to Que Madre before, my introduction is that I come from a Mexican family. My family's from Jalisco. And I know there's a lot of Jalicenses in this area. So shout out to Jalisco. And I grew up very working class, poor. My mom worked 3 jobs. My dad worked all the time too. So definitely grew up with a strong work ethic, but also feeling like, why do my parents have to work so hard? Why are my parents paid the level, the low level of pay that they're paid? Because I know when I went to college and I got my first internship, I was getting paid more in my internship than my mom had been getting paid in a job that she had worked many, many years. So just the way that the society values people, um, on, like the judgments on like how much you're worth is something that really got me questioning the system that we're involved in, capitalism. And you are going to hear that C word, when sometimes, because it has a huge impact on our lives. And there are different ways of being with each other in community. We're going to talk about cooperatives. We're going to talk about healing journeys, like Ali was saying, and I'm really interested in hearing about your healing journey a little bit more, Ali, because I know I feel like we have so many stigmas, and when we see people, we kind of, especially if they're in these different positions, we assume they have it all together. And it was really empowering for me to hear you when you said, that you had been through depression, because I had been through depression too. And I wasn't actually admitting how deep that depression was to the people around me. And so if you're feeling depression right now, like, don't feel like you're alone. There's so many of us that have been through it and have come out of it. And I mean, as far as my background, most of my background is organizing. So I've organized with the farm workers and different labor movement struggles on a national level, as well as a local level. I've worked on living wage campaigns, housing rights issues like tenants' rights. And right now I'm specifically involved with a lot of youth issues, because youth right now are the ones that are getting forgotten in a lot of the discussions, whether it comes to the pandemic, right, COVID-19 and its impacts, but also economic opportunity. They're, even though housing seems inaccessible now, it wasn't always that way. And so the system is just getting worse and worse, where now when you're a teenager, you may feel like the dream of a home feels so far away. So there's a lot of issues that we're going to talk about, and really nothing is off the table. And so if, you hear a few episodes and you're like, hey, you haven't brought this up, send us a message. Both Ali and I are on Instagram, on Facebook. And so definitely reach out. I know there's a Que Madre platform that we did announce our new partnership on. And do you want to talk a little bit about your healing journey, Ali, since we still have, about half the episode left to go?
Oh yeah. There's so much to share. And thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I feel like even I got to know more about you, and I feel the same way. And I hinted, there's people that their light is so radiant, and I want to be more with that person. It's so important to find that, especially in our healing journey, when there's something that there's a light, something that just really from your heart, it's your heart and gut, like this intuition of like, I know you, I want to get to know you, and I want to learn from you, to lean into that, and that's exactly how I felt about you. And I've learned to follow my gut feeling, something that was taken away from me since I was little, right? It's like you have to listen to other people. Other people have the information. You don't know. You don't know about yourself. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you need. You have to find the answers externally. And so in my healing journey, that's what I've been learning, to go back within myself, to go internally and find the answers within myself. I am my best teacher. And I wish I had known that earlier on. So I love that you're working with youth. I love that I'm working with youth. And, there's a lot of amazing service providers out there that are working with youth and with that next generation. And it's so healing that we can share this. I struggled with depression, I think, from the moment I was born. I cannot remember a time that I wasn't depressed and anxious. I was finally diagnosed when I was like 14, severe depression, severe anxiety, generalized anxiety, which means you're anxious about everything. So it feels so hopeless when you get that kind of diagnosis. And I wasn't told that I could go within myself. It was like, oh, well, you have to go to, this group, and you have to go to this person, and you have to read this book. And that is really helpful. You do. The part that I think is missing is, how do you go with it back within yourself? How do you connect and trust yourself? And so we hear a lot about like, oh, self-care, treat yourself, love yourself. And that's really hard because of what you were saying. Like, how do we build that worth when we still don't get the message that you are so knowledgeable, that you are so, you have the medicine within yourself.
Mhm.
So, like I
And
said,
there's lots of forms of medicine, right? Like even us doing the show is a form of medicine, which I got to do station identification. So you're listening to 96.5 KZAA FM. And yeah, I mean, and you were just posting on your Instagram about those medicines, right? About the full moon and having your copal out, having your crystals out. Can you say more about that?
yes, yes. I go finding that has been the journey, and it's breaking that generational cycle of, one, having to learn what happened to my ancestors, what happened to my immediate family, and then what has been happening to me. And having the right person to guide you through that is really important. Finding someone that is trained in that way, um, and looking for those answers were always a struggle. I feel like I by chance was able to find people who would tell me more about my history. And I'm so glad that, my parents also shared a little bit about what were the strengths in our family, because people would see us like, oh, you're lacking this, you're lacking that. You don't have information, you don't have education. Yet we have so much, I know Spanish and English. I know another culture. I know, like how to survive. I wish someone would have told me that, like, that was a strength, but I always got the message of, you're lacking, you're not smart enough. And I was a kid that almost failed kindergarten.
Mm.
And it wasn't until like a teacher highlighted my strengths. And she said, I'll never forget this. I didn't know English. I didn't know what was happening, which is why one of the reasons I was failing kindergarten. So it's not that I was a bad person or I didn't care about school. It was that I just couldn't communicate. I couldn't understand what was going on. But between kinder and first, no one saw that. And so the message was that, she's not good enough. She's not smart enough. And so I was internalizing that. I'm so lucky that I had a teacher in second grade, and she realized that I just couldn't speak the language. And she said, hey, class, what is this? And she shows up a picture of a butterfly. And I'm really shy. I'm really scared. I can't talk kinder through, first grade. But all of a sudden, in that one moment, I shout out from like the top of my lungs. I'm like, mariposa. And like, I just stop and I was like, what did I just do? And so then I sat down immediately, like, oh my God, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And the teacher looks at me, she's like, yes, good job. And I was like, and I just remember being like, I'm so smart. I know. And everybody was like, good job. All my like all the second graders were like, wow. And for the first time, I felt seen in a positive light. And that moment changed me. That moment, I wanted to do well in school. And not that I didn't want to in the beginning, it's just that I felt like all of a sudden something lit up in me. I was like, oh, I am smart. I can learn this. I can do this. And she was always a big mirror in my life saying, you got this, and she rewarded me and she was patient. She was empathetic. So that, I think, was the beginning of my healing journey. And I didn't even know it. Unfortunately, along the way, you don't always have great teachers like that who are really empathetic and culturally sensitive and competent. And so I struggled throughout it. I think the second level of my healing journey was finally realizing in a moment where I found myself in a very abusive relationship, and I was isolated and scared and just felt like that was the trajectory of my life. I'm supposed to be with someone who is okay with minimizing me, right? Abusing me. And that was normal. And I think it wasn't until I started exercising, like I saved them my pesitos and I was like, something's got to give. I started journaling. I started writing, like documenting my life as how I really was feeling. And so I just shared it in my journal. It was just me and my journal. It was an intimate moment with my journal, which I had done when I was young too, because when I was younger, I also was someone who wanted to, and this is a trigger warning here too, where some of the things that we're going to be talking about could cause triggers. So I just want to say that we're here for you. Um, and this might be triggering. And if you do feel triggered, that we're here for you and that there's other resources that we'll talk about more. So I was the person who was suicidal. I didn't want to continue living. I attempted a few times. And it was always in my journal that I wrote this down. Never had a hard time. I never was able to like talk about it. So fast forward, that was one of my medicines. That was one of the ways that I was able to express myself and talk about it, because there was a lot of secrets. I couldn't talk about it. It was, no saques
Los trapitos al
los
aire.
trapitos, right? So even though I did go to therapists at time, even though the reason that led me to therapists was because I was hospitalized, um, it took that for me to be able to share with the therapist what was going on, but it still felt wrong. And again, just fast forward, like I think the journaling really was helpful in just putting down like, this is what's going on for me. And then going back and reading it and saying, wow, like I really am going through this. This is very real. Because sometimes that self-critical talk of like, I'm just exaggerating, estás exagerando, like you have no problems. Why are you so depressed? Why are you so dramatic? Why are you exaggerating? But those was also messages that I was receiving around me, whether it was verbally or not. And the journaling was always a reflection back of like, this is really happening for you. So it's really good to narrate like what is really happening for me, this story. So I know I'm jumping back and forth, but I think journaling was definitely one that grounded me back to like my real like experience. And then when I finally was when I was in that toxic relationship, journaling again, I hadn't journaled in years. I started journaling. I started documenting everything that was happening to me. And I would go back and read and say, this is not okay. And I started asking myself, Ali, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? In a way that was compassionate and caring, because I would always judge myself, like, I can't believe you're in this again. I can't believe. And so I started shifting how I talk to myself. And I said, well, what are we going to do about it, sweetie? What are we going to do? What is the next step? What do you really want? And it took a lot because I was just so used to these cycles, right? And that's another topic we could talk about, just like the cycles, the honeymoon phase and all the way to like that explosion phase, and just how you get really stuck in that cycle. And how do you break it? It is kind of like, it's overwhelming when you're like, oh, break a cycle. Okay. How do you break a cycle? How do you break away from chains that you don't even understand? Where are they placed? So it's about debilitating the cycle. And every step, every time you journal, every time you exercise, every time you do some meditation, every time you talk about it with a healthy person, you begin debilitating the cycle. So again, breaking a cycle is too overwhelming. It's like, oh yeah, break everything that you've been doing since, generations past. That's overwhelming. So when we say, let's debilitate the cycle, and I didn't know this is just things that I've been picking up as I go, learning how to debilitate that cycle, and then finding mentors. I've been able to talk to more people who have taught me about decolonizing my mind, decolonizing my body, reclaiming my story. And that is also part of debilitating the cycle. And so that is part of the healing journey. So that helps me level up in my healing journey, where I look at depression as like, okay, it's an expression. Depression is an expression of something. So if you go within yourself and look at the story, that it's your story, not the story of a pathology, of a theory of what depression is supposed to be or look like what is depression for you, and give it a kind of externalize it. Like, what is it trying to tell me? You are my friend and you're trying to tell me. I used to have panic attacks every day. And if you've had a panic attack,
Yes, I have.
oh my gosh, it feels like
you're gonna die.
Yeah. And so I looked at that. I was like, what are you trying to tell me? Why are we panicking? What is happening? But it took a while for me to go internally. And I think the pathway with that was journaling, finding a good therapist. Not every therapist is great. They might not know how to lead you that way. And I'm telling you the truth. We're going to tell you the real talk. So it's so important to find like an ideal, like not the ideal, but the right person that's going to guide you within back to yourself and your strengths and that river of knowledge that exists within you, to find la medicina, right? And to point you like, hey, you know what? You like crystals. Just because other people don't like crystals doesn't mean you shun it away. Or when they call it woo woo, right? Oh, that's so woo woo. And I would call it woo woo because other people called it woo woo. And then I was like, ¿por qué? Wait, hold on. Why am I going to judge something I like? And so inquiring more and asking around, I did a cacao ritual once, and it was so liberating. And that's the point. Cacao rituals open your heart. And so that's part of the healing journey. Like when something calls to you, like for example, when I met Anna, I leaned in hard. I was like, hi. And so I think we both just really just like our hearts led us to each other, but you have to trust the process. And I think that's a lot of my message. I was like, just trust the process. It might not make sense right away, but that's healing doesn't have a beginning, middle, or end. It's just a journey. It's just a process. You stop, you pause, and something might happen. You might have to heal something new, and that's okay. There is no end to this. And that's what our ancestors did. They've never had like, oh, we begin here, step 1, 2, 3, 12 steps.
It's not linear.
Exactly. Yes. So that's a little bit more about the healing journey and getting here. And then the next level is that collective, right? Healing yourself is really important. And then now the collective, how do we bring in people and not call them out like, oh, you haven't done this, or you're not loving yourself this way, or you're not doing. It's more about calling in and having these spaces to share and to say, this is really my experience, and get that validation from yourself and also other people. But it's really important to find those safe spaces where you can talk about it without judgment, because you might be judging yourself, but someone can help you liberate yourself from that judgment. Anna does that for me all the time. She's like, it's okay, estás bien, well, no te dejes, mija.
Yeah, there's this amazing Black woman author. Her name is Sonia Renee Taylor, and she wrote "The Body Is Not an Apology." And one of the quotes that I took away from her talk the other night is that you cannot build externally what you have not built internally. And that really resonated with me, because I do have very large like community visions of what we could be doing. And I feel like I am on a healing journey, but I know I still have more to do. So that was really important for me to hear that reminder, like it's okay if you need to focus on yourself to do that healing work. Because at the end, you will bring it back to your community and help your community heal as a whole, which is part of my attempt with this podcast with Ali.
Yes. And that's what our ancestors did. A lot of their day wasn't about surviving. A lot of their day was floricanto, is to go out and make meaning out of life and finding the harmony within the like existential of being a human, and then also like the magic of this world, and being the alchemist of your own life, like being your own, like machine that makes meaning and makes, something that makes it converted into energy that is useful. Floricanto, going out and seeing, singing and looking at the flowers. And that was part of their day. That was just, and today now it's like, okay, well, start off your day, do your morning ritual, it's so like, linear, and then you go to work and you do these emails and all that.
Well, if you get a chance at a morning ritual, right? Because actually a morning ritual can be very empowering, but what happens is we're so go, 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 where it's just like grab your coffee, put on your clothes, head out. Whereas like if I'm able to take my time, and I have an altar of my firstborn daughter who passed away, Adelita, and if I'm able to come to her altar in the morning, like be intentional and say a prayer with her and start out my day saying what I'm thankful for, and then waking up my daughter for school and helping her get through breakfast and all that, and putting on a meditation for her on the way to school, so that she has those affirmations that she needs to know that she's beautiful and amazing and intelligent, and that she's got this, right? Because K through 12 can be really difficult. And I forgot how difficult it was until I've been, with my daughter, helping her through every day, and dealing with issues of bullying, which I had to deal with too when I was a kid. And it's like we deal with these bullies every day, and they're in different places. They can be in your work, in your school, they can be a neighbor, and you have to take away the power that they have over you, because you need to remind yourself that you are amazing and brilliant just the way you are, the way you came into this earth, that there's nothing you're missing. Like, you are whole now. And yeah, we can all improve over time and learn new things, but that comes in time and there's no rush about it.
Yes, I love what you're saying, and how beautiful to help, our little queens honor themselves. They need help to honor themselves. And those affirmations, that like constant reminder of like honor yourself, that is not around us, especially as mujeres. You hear you're not good enough, so buy this. You're not good enough. You're not ready to this. You don't have this. And it's going back to like, I am here on this planet. Yes, I have what it takes, right? And our ancestors had that. They consistently did that. And so we're bringing that, like revitalizing that in our way in this new modern world. And I love that. You're like, okay, in the car, we're going to do affirmations.
Yep. Yep.
Beautiful. We don't have to like sit down and like, it's as we go. And I was talking to a maestra who will hopefully be joining us as a guest about that, we're also bringing this healing from our ancestors in this world. And it doesn't have to be right or wrong. It's what's good for you. And making that, making your own meaning out of it and making your own rituals around it. It doesn't even have to be like, well, you have to put in this incense and then this cobal. I share fully that I didn't even know how to do a cobal. Like, I didn't even know what cobal was. And I saw it from someone and I couldn't find the answers of how to do it or how to bring it.
It's tree sap.
It's what?
It's tree sap.
Yes, exactly. It's tree sap. And so, but I didn't even know what to do with it. I was like, but I want it. I want to be able to bring that into my life. And so little by little, and I made a bunch of mistakes. I even did a live where I was like, I'm going to do this and I'm not sure what I'm doing. But putting myself out there and showing like, I don't know the answers, but if you know and you want to help me, like right now, and I was like, it's tree sap.
But I didn't know either. And I just know that the first time that I smelled it, it transported me to a different place. Like, I felt like it connected me to my ancestors, and it was such an indescribable feeling to be like, wow, like, and I didn't know. It was at El Congreso. It was their first meeting when I was a fresh woman at UCSB. And so every time it's their first meeting, they do like a ceremonia and they, have the copal. And it was just, I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. It's making me want to cry. But on that note, I have to do station identification again.
Yes.
So you are listening to Que Madre in partnership with Bienestar Latinx on KZAA 96.5 FM. And we're talking about copal and the medicine of our ancestors right now.
Yes, I love that. No, qué hermoso that we get to talk about it. I think there's also the honoring that we have the last generations have made sure that we can still talk about it and still bring it. And even if you don't know a lot about it, doesn't mean it's not accessible to you. And it's nuestra herencia. That is our heritage. And so I really appreciate all of the previous people and communities who have done everything to make sure that we bring it, that we've been passing it along. And for me, I know that my job right now is to go find it. It's not really present around me and it's unfortunate. But my vision is to have it very present and very accessible to our community. And, I when I was doing my master's and we were learning about healing and how to heal, I was like, why am I learning about this in my master's? This is not rocket science. This is about being a human. Why do we have to go pay for it? Why do we have to go into these institutions to learn about this when it is ours? It is our right, right? Yeah. How you feeling, corazón de melón?
Um,
Yeah.
I think what I'm feeling right now is that I know that I have indigenous ancestry, and just like thinking about colonization and how it was taken away. It
Yeah.
just feels really empowering to be able to reach back into that. So it's happy tears.
Yes. I hear you. It's so beautiful to come to be like, just today we're talking about it and we know what it is and we have experienced it. When you said that smell and how it's a portal. And it's true. Like for me, the copal, when I smell it, I was like, it's a boom, like just it's really fast and just deep. I land within myself. You know what I learned about copal too is that they call it el fuego abuelo, right? So it's so beautiful that it calls in our ancestors too, and they're holding us, and they've been doing that for so long. And to acknowledge that and to feel that is so powerful. And when I one of the stories that I learned about our gente during the colonization is that, so when the colonization was happening, they removed everything, right? They wanted to really rip us away from our identity. They wanted this to be erased. So one, major props to us. And they and we what our gente did is they would use the bowls as instruments. So they weren't allowed to even like play their music. We weren't able to connect with our healing medicine, which a lot of it was the drums, the percussion. So las mujeres, they would make these bowls, and then they would at night they would put them over water, and they would drum, and we would tell the stories at night. Well, then the colonizers would be like, oh heck no. So they would come into the houses and say like, we heard the drums, we heard you practicing your rituals. And they were just like cooking. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I love that story because it's like how creative, and how courageous, and especially las mujeres, like, and there's so much about like our women who have done incredible like engineering work too, that have gotten us to survive all this time. So there's so much goodness in these conversations, and so much healing that just sharing the stories can really bring forward. And it doesn't have to be so, oh, step one, step two, step three. You never know when it's going to start. You never know where it's going to end. You don't know if all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I've been healing. I just didn't know. I was just actually going with my gut feeling.
Yeah. They say that we are the ones that our ancestors sang and prayed about. And I really believe that, like their prayers were not for nothing, and that we're gonna decolonize, we're gonna fight back all these systems that have tried to keep us from experiencing joy. And I really believe that Black and brown joy are like the most revolutionary things. And I am excited to explore that with you in this show, and to just like invite people to be part of this.
Yes. This is una plática. It's a plática. It's holding space for each other, and what comes forward is beautiful. What comes forward is innocent. What comes forward is authentically powerful, and it's us honoring the lineage and the heritage that is ours, and reclaiming that. And I thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this journey. It means the world, and I just want to honor you and everything that you have done and continue doing, and ese corazonzote que tienes. And to all our listeners, we see you. We see you. And so we're with you, and if there's anything that you need or support, please reach out to us. We're so happy to connect with you and bring the resources, the ideas, the stories, up forward more. This is the time. We don't have to hide anymore.
Aquí estamos y no nos vamos. Y si
Eso.
flecha, nos regresamos. So I know we both have to head to work now. So just we'll do one last station identification. You've been listening to KZAA 96.5 FM and Ali Cortes, as well as Ana Rosa Rizo Centino with Que Madre in partnership with Bienestar Latinx. We hope you tune in next time on Thursday at 6 p.m.
Hasta luego, bella gente.